a glass tower in the full sun. Inside, hundreds of employees are typing on their keyboards, focused. We're in the heart of Silicon Valley, at the headquarters of an invisible empire that controls everything we watch. Every poster, every ad, every YouTube video, everything goes through their software. On the front, just a simple red and white logo, Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, InDesign. For 40 years, they've held the creative world in their hands. But what no one sees is what's happening behind the scenes. In the United States, customers are suing Adobe, saying they're being trapped in subscriptions that are impossible to cancel. Creators on forums are revolting, claiming the artificial intelligence is appropriating their images and taking their place. And even worse, competitors we thought were gone are coming back to crush them. Figma, DaVinci, Affinity. A revolution is underway. And for the first time in decades, Adobe 30, the company's model that seemed untouchable, has become its own trap. But then how did such a powerful, profitable empire end up cutting itself off from its own creators? Why is the community that once worshipped it now openly revolting? Hi, Team Mindset. I hope you're doing well. Today, we're diving into the fascinating and dramatic story of Adobe's downfall. A masterful lesson on the pitfalls of monopoly, the arrogance of success, and the revolt of users. We'll also see why the real threat to Adobe doesn't come from its rivals, but from its own business model. As always, we'll finish with the business lessons to remember for your own entrepreneurial journey. And we're starting now. Two engineers slam the door in Xerox Park. They're not angry, just frustrated. Frustrated that no one takes their inventions seriously. A mathematical language capable of describing any printed image with revolutionary precision. Xerox Palo Alto Research Center is a legendary research lab created by Xerox in the 70s, located in Palo Alto, California. The kind of place where the brightest minds invent the future. That's where the personal computer, the mouse, the graphical interface, and Ethernet were created. Technologies that Xerox never knew how to exploit, but that Steve Jobs would come and pick up to build the first Macintosh. And that's also where John Warnock and Charles Geschke work. Their idea is a page description language, a missing link between the screen and the printer. This would allow, for the first time, to print exactly what you see on the screen, pixel for pixel, dot for dot. But at Xerox, as is common, no one has faith in it. So, Warnock and Geschke make a radical decision. They leave Xerox, start their own company, and call it Adobe. 2 years later, they release PostScript, a small piece of code that will literally redefine the global publishing industry. It's an earthquake. It might sound crazy today, but before that, printing a document was a nightmare. Fonts would disappear, images would crash, and the layout would change. On every machine, PostScript will standardize high-quality printing. One language, one grammar, everywhere in the world. But there's a problem. They have the product, they have the code, but they don't have the leverage yet. In 1984, Adobe is nothing. A few offices, 2 founders, a brilliant idea, but no way to share it globally until one man steps in. Medium-length hair, black turtleneck. Steve Jobs discovers PostScript. He understands instantly, and in his mind, the puzzle comes together. A personal computer, a laser printer, and the Adobe engine to connect the two, it's a game changer. Jobs integrates PostScript into Apple printers. He even helps finance Adobe. Unknowingly, he ignites the personal digital publishing revolution. Thanks to Adobe, any graphic designer can work from home, create an entire magazine, and print it with professional quality. And that, in the 80s, is a revolution. It's like today, if you could shoot a movie with your iPhone and show it in IMAX without going through Hollywood. Adobe takes off, then comes Illustrator in 1987, and especially in 1988, a stroke of genius. Originally, Photoshop was not an Adobe software, but a tool that Adobe later acquired. 2 brothers, Thomas and John Knoll, create a revolutionary photo editing software. Adobe sees the potential and buys the distribution rights. 2 years later, Adobe officially releases Photoshop 1.0. From there, Adobe becomes the backbone of global visual creation, becoming ubiquitous in the 90s. Need a flyer? Use Photoshop. A logo? Illustrator, a resume, InDesign, a video, Premiere Pro, and all that. You buy it once, about $800, and you use it for 5 to 10 years. Some people crack it, others save up, but everyone knows Adobe is the standard. Above all, the social contract is clear. You pay, you own it, you work with your tools on your computer. No online account, no remote control, you just create. By the late 2000 ESA, problem arose. Saturated markets and overly stable software led to customers halting updates. And above all, piracy exploded. A cracked Photoshop could be downloaded in 3 minutes from any Russian website. And then at Adobe, an idea started to take shape. What if they stopped selling products and started selling subscriptions instead? Not only to combat piracy and stabilize revenue, but to transform the customer relationship. That's when everything is going to change. Adobe announces something that seems trivial at the time. Photoshop Creative Suite 6 will be the last software available for one-time purchase. In the future, everything, including files and licenses, will go through the cloud. To access your software, you'll now have to pay every month. Adobe presents it as a natural evolution. With Creative Cloud, you'll always have the latest version. They've eliminated the big $1,000 purchases, making your life easier. Behind this reassuring communication lies a brutal transformation of the model. Before you paid once, you worked offline, you could keep your version as long as you wanted. Now, if you stop paying, you lose everything. Say goodbye to Photoshop ownership, compatibility, and access. With Adobe, you're now renting, not buying. Welcome to their ecosystem. And for most creatives, graphic designers, and videographers, it's a trap. Because all your files are in Photoshop Document Artificial Intelligence (NDD), closed proprietary formats. You're stuck. You want to leave, you lose 10 years of archives. You want to work somewhere else, you have to learn other tools all over again. In business, that's called a switching cost. A cost of leaving so high that customers stay even if they don't want to. And Adobe doesn't stop there. The prices quietly go up regularly. One more dollar here, two there. Sometimes reaching 60 to 90 euros per month for just one. Creative freelance. In 2024, a petition against Adobe Creative Cloud reached over 120,000 signatures in 48 hours. The reasons? Excessive price hikes, broken update promises, and most importantly, the inability to leave the system without losing everything. But Adobe doesn't care because they succeeded where so many others failed. They turned a product into a dependency. Every month, millions of users pay. Not because they like it, but because they don't have a choice. The result is that Adobe is breaking all its records. In 2010, a little over $3 billion in revenue. In 2024, more than $19 billion. And above all, net margins of over 30%. But this economic success hides a much darker reality. The more Adobe earns, the more anger rises. And it's not a startup that's going to worry him. It's a collective rebellion, tens of thousands of creatives, agencies, freelancers who are going to try to take back control. A small independent publisher releases a software unknown to the general public, Affinity Designer. No subscription, no cloud, just a simple, powerful software for less than 70 euros. One-time payment. And it's not alone. In design, Figma is starting to spread in product design schools. In video, DaVinci Resolve is crushing Adobe Premiere in independent studios. In photography, Affinity Photo is becoming the preferred alternative to Photoshop. And above all, among young creators, a question is starting to come up. Why keep paying $60 a month for software we don't even like using anymore? Adobe starts to panic as this time, it's not just big companies targeting them. That's the basics. Creators, indies, Reddit communities, and above all, the schools. A 2018 survey by X Collective, a major specialized media outlet, revealed that Figma overtook Adobe as the preferred tool among product designers. For the perceptive, it's the start of the end. Why? Because Figma is free, accessible from any browser, and above all, collaborative in real time. A Google Doc for design. While Adobe keeps selling licenses for €600 a year, Figma breaks everything they had locked down. No installation, powerful Mac Pro, or monthly fees required to try it out. As a result, all the young creators are moving over. In 2020, Figma is already valued at over $2 billion. And Adobe realizes that they may have let an entire generation slip away. It's a nightmare. Instead of innovating, Adobe opts for their only remaining known solution. They pull out the checkbook. In September 2022, Adobe announces the acquisition of Figma for $20 billion, cash plus stock, an insane amount, 20 times Figma's revenue. Adobe set such an outrageous price out of panic. They had no more room to maneuver. They had to stop the bleeding before the big tech companies permanently switched to Figma. But this move will backfire on them. The American, British, and European regulators are blocking the deal. The acquisition fails in 2023 due to size and monopoly concerns, leaving Adobe humiliated. No Figma, no alternative, and a historic admission of weakness. Worse, this attempted acquisition woke everyone up. Creators realize that their power is real, competitors are raising funds, and free alternatives are booming. And in the shadows, a new revolution is beginning to threaten the entire structure. A revolution that Adobe can't buy, a revolution where Adobe doesn't control artificial intelligence. And what happens next will deeply undermine their entire model. An internal email leaks on Twitter. In one sentence, everything blows up. Adobe trains its artificial intelligence with images from Creative Cloud. It's a shock. For thousands of artists, it's the worst betrayal. Because what it means is simple. The works you created with Photoshop, with Illustrator, the ones you spent hours perfecting, might now be used to train artificial intelligence, which will replace you without informing you, without paying you, without even thanking you. And this artificial intelligence, it has a name, Firefly. At first, Firefly impresses. Image generation from text, magic tools, retouching, automatic background removal. And the most ironic thing is, it's faster and smoother than most human users. Adobe integrates it everywhere. Photoshop, Illustrator Express, even Premiere. The future of creation is here, but what Firefly also triggers is a war. Behind the scenes, contempt is brewing. Freelance illustrators, agency graphic designers, stock photographers, all are seeing their incomes collapse. Why pay a human when an artificial intelligence built into Photoshop can create an image, a poster, a logo in 3 seconds? And the irony becomes unbearable. The tools that creators pay for are now being used against them. And that's the ultimate slap in the face for a company that claimed to serve artists. On top of that, Firefly isn't alone. On the other hand, Midjourney leads the market, while DALL-E and Convolence are advancing. Magic Design Runway surpassed Adobe Premiere in video just yesterday. In other words, even where Adobe thought it was dominating, it's now getting caught up. Even worse, it's being overtaken by companies 10 times smaller, faster, bolder, and much more appreciated. And that's not all. In 2024, the media discovers that Firefly is massively trained on Adobe stock content. Images submitted by photographers, illustrators, graphic designers who were not clearly informed. And some discover that their own images are reused and remixed by Adobe's artificial intelligence without being able to block it. The discontent leads to anger, which then becomes a call for a boycott. And in creative forums, one phrase keeps coming up. Adobe has betrayed those who helped it grow. Artificial intelligence, which could have been redemption, is becoming the weapon of creative suicide. And that's not a metaphor. What will happen in 2025 will further diminish Adobe's position. A notch that, this time, will be counted in billions of dollars lost. Do you remember the failed acquisition of Figma? Well, Adobe has to pay a breakup fee of $1 billion. Meanwhile, creators are organizing, and Canva is turning into a popular tool for small teams. Notion is establishing itself as the Google Doc of creativity. DaVinci dominates among independent studios, and Figma remains free, collaborative, and beloved. And among young designers, a new word is spreading: de-Adobized. Basically, it means getting rid of Adobe, systematically. As a result, lawsuits are piling up, and for the first time in 20 years, the Adobe model is no longer a dream. An entire generation of artists, designers, and editors no longer wants this prison. Creative Cloud, they want tools that are freer, more open, more human, and Adobe, instead of listening to them, chose to monitor them, to lock them up, to replace them. And as promised, here are the 2 business mindset lessons we can learn from this silent descent into hell. The first lesson is to never look down on those who built you. Adobe owes its empire to creators, but by locking them into ever more expensive subscriptions, exploiting their data, and developing AIs to replace them, they betrayed their own base, and the base always ends up rebelling if it feels betrayed. The second lesson is that trying to control too much from it means losing control. Adobe wanted to lock down its ecosystem, but by trying to control everything, they made themselves vulnerable. Innovation today comes from openness and the adaptability of communities. And do you think Adobe can still reinvent itself? Or does the future already belong to artificial intelligence and alternative tools? And that Adobe will end up like Snapchat, a company that transformed its industry, before gradually having its ideas stolen by its competitors, who will eventually use them better than it did, as you can see in the video that's showing.